Hi, I'm Tim Roehl. At the beginning of every game plan for intentional missional ministry is the call. The call of God is the basis for courageous perseverance. It is a sacred thing, not just a job that we're doing. We're living out a call. So how do you describe something as sacred and personal as the call of God? Well, I can describe it how it works for me, and perhaps you'll find some universal things that make the call so important to us. So here's how I describe my call. At first, it was a gentle whisper, inviting me. Audible, but not quite discernible. Instinctively, I leaned forward, listening intently. I knew that voice. He was saying something new, but not completely clear. I could sense an unseen hand slowly and steadily beckoning me in a direction I could understand, but a destination I couldn't, at least not yet. My heart turned to the invitation as if drawn by an invisible, supernatural magnet. It was a divine summons to prepare, a call. There was a sense of destiny in the summons, and something in me began to burn. He was pointing me towards something that didn't apply to my current situation, and it seemed to be way beyond me. My heart felt an odd mixture of apprehension and exhilaration. There was a sense of eager delight about the direction, but uncertainty about the destination. What was he up to? Did he realize how inadequate I was to follow the call and fulfill the task? Slowly, I began to see how intent he was in his purposes. The gentle whisper increased in intensity and clarity. The fire began to burn more brightly. Seemingly unconnected circumstances began to fit a cohesive pattern. Chance meetings with certain people began to bear the unmistakable imprint of divine appointments. Particular books spoke to me deeply, adding fuel to the flame of a sense of destiny. Life experiences that left me at times heartbroken and at other times bursting with joy came at key times, as if unseen hands were forming my character from a master plan. He was stretching me, sharpening me, impressing on me issues that all centered in my heart. It was then that I realized his ultimate goal was to make me like him. No matter what else the call might mean, it had to flow from a heart he had cleansed and filled, a heart like his. And so I yielded completely, lest anything in my life corrupt the call. And he answered my cry for cleansing with grace beyond my greatest heart desires and needs. As he continued to work on me, the plan was coming into focus, and I was shaken to realize how big his purposes were. I had thought this was about me, but he had so much more in mind. It was about multitudes of people influenced for his kingdom, multitudes living in the valley of decision, waiting for someone to lead them to the forgiveness of the Father's heart purchased by the blood of the Son. I couldn't believe he would allow me to be a part of something so awesome and eternal. I was humbled again, overwhelmed with inadequacy. His response was to remind me again of his overwhelming sufficiency. As I had many times before, I could only bow before him in grateful awe, thankful that he'd chosen me to be a small part of such a master plan so full of wonder. Slowly, I was able to acknowledge that he had made no mistake in choosing me, but the period of preparation took much longer than I could have imagined. He was willing to take the time to do the job right, even though I questioned his methods more often than I'd want to admit now. The call became clear, as if he was writing it indelibly on my heart. I was sharing the call with others and found confirmation from other members of his family. The fire was burning hot. The urge to step into the fullness of his purposes intense and insistent. Something inside me was restless, sensing an impending change. He had taught me to be grateful and faithful where I was, but my heart had the uncomfortable, radiant, exhilarating expectancy of someone 8.5 months spiritually pregnant. When would he bring the birth? It wouldn't be long now, or so I thought. I think he just smiled and continued his specially tailored preparation. I wondered if I'd ever be ready. He was just waiting for a moment in time he designed before I was even born. Finally, on an ordinary day from my perspective, and a day of destiny from his, he opened the door. Suddenly, Everything made supernatural sense. What had started as a gentle whisper of invitation was now a consuming passion. All the preparation, the tapestry of life experience he wove so carefully and skillfully together, now I could see it. There before me was the open door. He smiled and reached out to me, inviting me to walk with him into the fullness of the call. I could see it all now. The invitation, the preparation, this was the culmination. A sense of destiny was at last becoming reality. And so I took his hand and walked through the door. You see, there's no sweeter, secure, and supernaturally sustaining place than living in the center of God's will and living out his call. So remember the things that are universal about the call. First, his call always starts with his invitation, always expressed in two main dimensions, as he did when he called his first disciples. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Follow me is to walk with him and become like him. That's always our primary calling. But just right along with that, equally important really, is I will make you fishers of men, to work with him for his great redemptive purposes in our world. Secondly, he stretches, sharpens, and shapes us to fit his call. He does not call the qualified. He does qualify us to his call as we yield to his purposes. Third, his call is specific. He calls us to a place. He calls us to a person, especially as we think about our life companions, our mates. He calls us to a people group. He calls us with a passion. Don't just do a job. Let him call you specifically to the place and people he's called you to reach. Number 4, his call sustains. When everything else is up for grabs, it's his call that keeps us in place and sustains us. Many times, you and I have wanted to give up and quit when things were hard. But remember, when we know that we're called men and women of God, his call is the basis for courageous perseverance. Remember what he said when he called Isaiah? Who will go for us? Remember what Isaiah said? Here am I. Send me. Brothers and sisters, live out your call.